Hi folks, and welcome to this short video on what to do when your economics hits a downturn. Very common query that we get as economics teachers over the years relates to pupils who have started doing a little bit more quantity of work, but because the quality of what they're doing isn't really helping them to improve their actual understanding and analysis in economics, the grades don't seem to shift. They get very disheartened and they come to us saying, how am I supposed to improve? Well, here are 6 steps, please follow them, to try and avoid your economics downturn turning into some sort of Great Depression. Let's see if you can get some sort of V-shaped recovery. Step 1 is the most important. Don't panic. It is okay for a sixth form A-level or IB subject to be difficult. That's kind of the whole point. You know, the great things that human beings have achieved over the centuries have not been achieved because they were easy. They were achieved because they were difficult. And progress is not linear. So it is perfectly normal for your progress as an economics candidate from the age of 16 to progress in a kind of flatline profile for a while, kind of getting it, not necessarily getting it, and then a sudden acceleration of understanding as you go into the middle of the upper six perhaps. For different people, the upswing will happen at different times, but do not panic just because you're not getting a really easy unveiling of the mystery of economics in a linear fashion where every week you feel a little bit stronger. Keep the faith, don't panic. Remember, it is always going to seem impossible until suddenly you understand it. And then once things click, you'll be amazed by how rapidly your progress can accelerate. So once you've got your panic firmly booted into touch, which is the only place for it, start to look at what you have in front of you. And everyone, especially nowadays with all the tech you have, has got a huge wealth of resources. The key is to assemble those resources in a logical fashion. And the first thing to do is to look at your specification. So in this case here, it's A level Edexcel Economics. You must get your hands on a copy of the specific specification for your course. That is the only place that will tell you exactly what you need to know and what you do not need to know for your particular course, whether it's economics, IB, higher level or standard level or Edexcel or AQA, it doesn't matter. Get a hold of the specification. It is your list and keep that right at the front of your folder. Next point, I'm sorry folks, but you're not going to be able to do an academic A-level without having some sort of quality reference book. You cannot do everything simply on revision notes. You're going to need a good old meaty textbook like Anderton. Now the good news is you don't need to read this thing cover to cover. You just need to dip in and out of there on a regular basis to get some more detailed analysis points, some good case study things at the end of those chapters, or to define a key term. But everybody needs a reference book. Do not rely on Google. Get that textbook and make sure you go in and out of there relatively frequently. Of course, in practical terms, most A-level or IB candidates are going to end up reaching for something like this, the kind of abbreviated revision notes. And that is absolutely fine because these publications are very good at slimming down the breadth of theory into some real simple basics that you need to know. So absolutely, I would have both, reference book and the revision aid. Now, the type of notes and the quality of notes people take in the classroom can really vary. Whatever notes you've been taking or exercise you've been doing in the live classroom experience, you have to assemble that together, stick some dates on it, organize it, chuck out the stuff that's just wasting paper in your folder, rewrite the things that are a bit scrappy, put things together, photocopy some notes off your friends for the lessons you missed, and assemble some sort of track record of what you've been doing in your classes. Increasingly, you find that all this is being done for you through some sort of centralized OneNote platform. That's what we use in my lessons. I know lots of people do. So make sure that you understand what was done in every lesson, that you've got a full history of how the course has been taught. It is not a replacement for a textbook, but it's an important bit of information. You have to assemble that resource. Now, it's a blessing and it's a curse, but there's no shadow of a doubt that you guys, your generation, is absolutely swimming in quality resources. The problem is there's so much of it. Tutor to You is, I would say, the single best A-level resource site there. But there's a lot of data on there, there's a lot of stuff. You have to assemble the bits from Tutor to You that you want to bring in to your resource library. Similarly with the YouTube channels. Econ plus Dal, for example, an excellent YouTube channel for IB or for A-level candidates. Tutor to You has a YouTube channel. I highly recommend Marginal Revolution University, an American outfit. And there's some other fantastic videos out there as well. But you should make that into your own playlist. You cannot just rely on searching some key term on YouTube and not delivering you quality resources that's going to be a good use of your time. Make a playlist. Organize your playlist under different topics. A playlist for micro, a playlist for macro, a playlist for international. You know, use that resource, but organize it. And finally, of course, many schools will opt for some sort of platform like Firefly or Google Classroom or something like that, with lots and lots of resources dumped down on it. Do not make the mistake of thinking that because the information is online, that you don't need to assemble your resources. Of course, you need to assemble the resources that you feel are the most applicable for you as you try to, moving back to the very first one here, tick off the various things on your course specification. Right, we're on to step 3 here. Things really heating up. There's no point in just assembling all the various resources that tell you what's on the economics course. That's a good, first step. But you have to then build effective revision aids. And by that I mean the types of things that are going to help you learn the topic. Now, my 2 big hints here are to build conceptual mind maps which link together different areas of theory or different chains of analysis, and to build flashcards. Far too few students actually build quality flashcards. Do not just order some economics flashcards off the internet. That's just simply assembling more resources. Build your own revision aids. So what sort of things should be on your flashcards? Well, start with the basics. One side for the term, other side for a definition. One side for the title of a diagram, the other side for the actual diagram. One side for a simple question that would require a simple single chain of analysis. In other words, explain why low interest rates might increase borrowing. So there's the question on one side and your simple single chain of analysis on the other side. And of course, you can have some examples. One side of the flashcard says, give an example of a country with low rates of unemployment. And the other side of the card gives the example of low rates or high rates of unemployment, or an example of negative externality of consumption, or whatever it is. Finally, people seem to think that evaluation is something that's some sort of dark art that you can only do in a big long essay and wait for your teacher to give you loads of feedback on. Rubbish. Evaluation is ultimately a list of counter arguments for every argument. So why not build some flashcards that have got an argument on one side and a counter argument on the other side? Or an it depends on scenario on one side and then a counter argument on the other side. So use these flashcards, build your own, so that you can build up the key knowledge and basic analysis and the building blocks of evaluation that you will use in your longer response answers. Good job. So you've got your resources all assembled and you've managed to build some proper revision aids. You've built some things that'll help you learn. Now you need to test. You need to be brutal with yourself, guys. This is an A-level or it's a 6th form course of study in economics. You need to check that you actually know this stuff. There's no point in just building lots and lots of revision aids. Check if you know it. Well, how do we do that? It's a simple process of testing what we know, marking our own work, diagnosing to try and figure out where the problems are, fixing those problems, and then testing again. And the best website I know of at the moment to get these types of tests is physicsandmathstutor.com. So we'll go there now and show you what it's about. So here we are at the Physics and Maths Tutor A-Level Economics, having navigated to past papers and A-Level Economics papers. Right, so which ones do we want? They've got all the exam boards down here for most of the years. Well, there are 2 groups of A-Level Economics papers. There's the current ones from 2015, and if you go down, then you'll find legacy ones, the ones that were in existence before 2015. Now, what you need to know is that to revise your basic micro, you need to be finding Unit 1 AS level papers. So let's say either legacy A levels in the UK Unit 1s, or it is going to be current AS paper Unit 1s. All right? Now the best ones I've found are the old AQA Unit 1 for micro and then Unit 2 for basic macro. So if we click here on a Unit 1, you can see that you've got absolutely shed loads of question papers and mark schemes for these basic lower sixth standard microeconomics knowledge. Now, at the start of those AQA papers, it's fantastic. They've just got 25 multiple choice questions. The great thing about multiple choice questions is that you know 100% if it's right or if it's wrong. You can self-mark it, and then you can diagnose which ones you keep on getting wrong. So you do the 25 questions, then you go to the mark scheme, you give yourself a score. You don't just leave it there. You don't just chuck it in the waste paper basket. You then go through and look at every single question that you got wrong and try and find the answer to why you got it wrong. Did you get it wrong because you misread the question? That's quite common. Or did you get it wrong because you don't really know, for example here, what income elasticity of demand really means, and that's why you got the answer wrong? Well, that's important. Diagnose the problem, then you can fix it. If you got the question on income elasticity wrong because you actually don't really understand income elasticity of demand, then you go and fix that problem by pulling out those resources, building those revision aids, and making sure that you really understand income elasticity of demand. So here we have a similar example for long Lagrange supply curves in your basic macro analysis. These questions really help to drill down into how accurate your understanding of it is. If you've got a fairly wishy-washy understanding of aggregate supply and aggregate demand, you'll probably not get the right one right out of those 4 options every time. You'll get tricked by their little distractor questions that are ever so similar to the actual correct answer, but they're not the correct answer. So drilling down and being really strict with yourself, test, diagnose the problems, fix the problems, and then go back and test again until your marks in these past papers are coming up and up and up on those multiple choice. So here's an Edexcel past paper, paper 1 again, an AS level paper from microeconomics. Here you've got some basic calculations, some little 3-mark explanations, maybe a multiple choice for 1 mark, and a 2-mark calculate. These are things that are pretty easy to self-mark. You write your best guess of the answer, you look at the mark scheme, and you be honest with yourself. You will have a rough idea whether you got 1 or 2 or 0 marks out of 2. So any questions that go up to about 3 or 4 marks, you are able to self-mark them. If you are an IB student, the papers are not publicly available, but ask your college or your school to make them available to you, and you should be going through the paper 3s. That's where there's lots of small tariff questions, 2, 3, 4 mark questions. They're easy to self-mark, and you can do this process of test, diagnose, fix, and test again. Now, testing yourself, marking your own work, diagnosing, fixing, and testing again. That's possible when we're talking about, basic knowledge, things that are right or wrong. And it is also possible for the fairly simple chains of analysis. However, we all know, or we should know, that most of the marks, or a big proportion of the marks, are going to go for the quality of your evaluation, the ability to put together a fairly coherent, balanced argument for and against a particular theory. And for that, we need to go to step 5. And here it is, folks. This is the real key. The amount of students who complain that their marks aren't getting any better, but who consistently fail to sit down and write timed evaluative essays blows my mind. How do you do well in an A-level economics exam? You write timed evaluative essays. So how can you possibly improve at A-level economics, or even an IB, particularly an IB paper 1, how can you improve at that if you're not prepared to sit down and write these timed essays? You should be writing essays all the time, under timed conditions. If it's a 20-minute essay, you sit down, you give yourself 20 minutes, you write the thing. You write it over and over and over and over again. And you sling this stuff at your teacher, put them under pressure to mark these things and give you feedback. But it's amazing how few people are actually willing to write the bleeding essay. You got to do it, guys. You've got to write the essay. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but I don't know how to write essays. I always just get, low marks. I don't really know. Look, here's a simple guide to writing an economics essay. They're not actually, not works of, Nobel Prize winning fiction we're looking for here, right? You start off by explaining what the question means. What is the question asking, right? Maybe you need to define some key terms. Maybe you need to reword the question a bit. Short paragraph at the start saying, right, this is what this question is about. Now, as soon as you've done that, and if you think there's a diagram required, add your diagram. Don't hang around and think, oh, I'll get around to my diagram later on. No, 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 no. If you need a diagram, stick it down early, right? You can't get marks for it if you've run out of time. Now, there's loads of quite complex acronyms and, things knocking around. Tutor to You do some excellent stuff on essay technique. But if I'm being really honest with you, I just think you keep it simple. You make a point, all right? You explain what you mean by that point. You give an example, ideally from the extract, particularly if the question asks you to go to a particular, extract A or figure 2, you have to go to the extract. But even for the more open essays later on, you can still go back and use data in the extract, or you can use your own knowledge. And finally then, you evaluate, you challenge that point. If you do that and keep that in a paragraph structure, then you'll have ticked all the main boxes that A-level or IB essays require, which is knowledge, analysis, application, and evaluation. Do not leave all your evaluation to the very end of the essay. Evaluate early and evaluate often. And do it in these short paragraphs, 1 point per paragraph. And once you've done that, you've made a point, you've explained it, you've given an example, and you've kind of said, well, on the other hand, that argument might not be that valid because, well, you just repeat that. Just that same structure. These points here, 3 to 6, you just keep on doing them until you've got about 2 or 3 minutes before your time expires. Got to be strict on your time. That's why you got to practice writing timed evaluative essays. When you've got about 2 or 3 minutes left, you wrap it up with a quick judgment. Right, okay, on balance, I think the most likely answer to this question is this, and the most significant thing that it will depend on is this. And that's it. It really is that simple. Start by briefly explaining what the question means, give a diagram whenever you need it, put it down. And then your paragraph structure is point, explain, example, evaluation, repeat, 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 repeat. When you're nearly out of time, quick, short paragraph, right, okay, on balance, this is the most important thing, so I think this is the overall answer to the question. Now, guys, there's no point in writing evaluative essays if you haven't learned your basic content. So that's why you need to go back to the very start, build efficient revision aids so you can learn the basic definitions, the basic examples, the basic diagrams. Those things have to be correct, or your evaluative essays, no matter how many times you practice them, are always going to be a bit weak. But once you have that basic knowledge, you have to write the timed essays. You can't hide from it. You've got to do it. So ask yourself that real question. How many extra essays did I actually write on Have My Teacher? Because if the answer is very few, then that's probably the key to why you're struggling a bit. And here's the final one, guys. Apply the feedback, right? If you've spent all this time and energy building these resources, testing your knowledge, writing the essays, there's no point in just taking the essay with the marking on it, shoving it in the back of your bag and forgetting about it. You've got to apply the feedback. I speak to economics teachers up and down the country, and we all say the same thing. It is amazing how many times we write the same thing on a pupil's work. You didn't evaluate early enough. You didn't use examples. You didn't define your key terms at the start. Your diagram was missing labels. We say the same thing over and over again. It's maddening. So please, 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 guys, do us a favor for our sanity. Apply the feedback you've been given. And you know what? If you do this, you really will improve. We've all been doing this a while. We've seen pupils that accelerate rapidly in that rapid growth trajectory at the end of their course. If you want to be that person, you've got to follow these 6 steps. Above all, guys, don't forget step 1. Just don't panic. You are smart enough. You are talented enough. You can do well at A-level economics. We've seen it year in, year out. Candidates who put the work in and apply the feedback and follow this process, it's amazing how well they can do. Keep the faith, guys. Don't panic. Follow the steps, and best of luck.